Yeah. Welcome to the Indigenous Heathens Podcast. I'm Incredible Javier.
And I'm Yahaira Quiroz. Today we're going to be talking about feminism. I believe the documentary we watched was Feminism in Cell Block Y.
Yes.
So Javier, what were your thoughts?
First of all, we're gonna have the link in the description. I really enjoyed the documentary. I thought it was different, although I didn't agree with everything. I did think that there were a lot of great points that were brought up. A lot of great points. A lot of things that I seen in my childhood where I was like, oh shit, I could see exactly where they're coming from. So for me, I thought it was an interesting take because just to break it down, basically what they did is there was a gentleman that started kind of a workshop in prison about exploring and taking down the patriarchy, and he got a lot of people to open up in ways that I wouldn't expect. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very interesting workshop and concept, and just to hear everybody open up, like you said, in different ways was interesting to me. And I don't necessarily agree with everything either. I am a feminist. However, I feel we've gotten into very either you're very extreme about things, there is no it, well, with feminism, for a lot of women, they're very men are the root of all evil, and that's not necessarily the truth either.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what stood out and what's very relevant to me, I have a son, and I live in San Fernando, so this area is a little rough. So one thing that they did mention that was interesting to me was like, oh no, you can't teach your son to fight. But historically, or maybe I'm just close-minded or old-fashioned, I feel that any young man or young woman should be able to defend themselves physically, emotionally, and just overall be able to stand up for themselves. I'm not saying that violence should be the first resort. What I am saying is, first, definitely educating your child to try to understand or comprehend, communicate, in other words.
Yeah.
But if somebody puts their hands on my child, I don't think I would be okay with that either. And I think I would be pissed if my child didn't defend him or herself. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe I'm old fashioned. What do you think?
No, I agree with you because when they were talking about that, one thing that I thought was like for me, even when they said when you get out, I think was the one thing they said when you get out, they teach you how to do better, but they do it in a way that's kind of violent and still enforces the patriarchy, right? And I was some of the examples they use, like, well, a man has to do this, a man has to do that, which I could understand, like the gender roles, like they don't have to necessarily exist to that degree, right? But for me, it's like my whole thing is like fighting. That's what keeps me going. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm gonna fight this shit. I'm not gonna lose. That's the way I look at it. And it has nothing to do with being a man. It has to do with that. That's who I am, and that's part of my character. So and I started thinking about it, right? Like is that does that specifically have to do with being a man? But I don't think it does, because if you look at ancient tradition, especially with Mexica culture, when a warrior passed away, they went to a certain place in the underworld, right? They went to the same place, the exact same place that a female who died at giving childbirth went. So they were seen as equal. Those were equal battles. You know what I mean? And for me, I said, oh, that's pretty tight. And I started thinking about certain revolutions, the Cuban Revolution, the Mexican Revolution. So certain parts of it had female fighters, female guerrillas out there in the front lines. And then I also remember Zapatista movement. The Zapatista movement, a huge female influence. And I believe if not the most recent, but one of the most recent sub-commanders was a female. So for me, I don't think that, yeah, you're right. I don't think that violence is particularly like male, but I do think we do have to be able to defend ourselves. So yeah, that was one of my disagreements where I was like, I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, that's one of my disagreements too, because first of all, let me just be very clear that violence should never be the go-to. You know, somebody did say something, when you're ignorant, that's what you resort to, because that's what
Yeah.
you know, that's what you've been taught, especially when you come from abusive households and stuff like that. So I can totally relate. Now, of course, that I'm a little more, now that I am mature, not a little more, but now that I'm mature and I'm a lot more centered in life, I'm probably not going to turn around and slap you. I'm just going to go ahead and walk away from the situation.
Yeah.
But I think that also, with that being said, if you get in my face and you hit me, I'm probably 9 times out of like 10 gonna snap right back.
Yeah.
But what I was getting to with this too, it's like, for us historically, you know, like you mentioned the Mexicas, like, like when I think about it, it's like, yeah, men are warriors, men are, and just coming back to actuality, like, if a man cannot protect me or give me that security or provide, like, not saying that a man's a wallet. A man is not a wallet. A man is not there to buy you your Louis Vuittons or anything like that, or to be used as your financial your financial means. No, you should be able to do for yourself as a woman as well. But like, if a man in reality can't provide certain things for me, then what's the point? Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's like, I come from a household where like my grandfather bought my grandmother a house, and my grandmother stayed home to care for the children. And in my mother's case, my stepfather provided all that, the housing and everything. And of course, my mom worked as well, took care of certain aspects of the household, and took care of the kids. And I think in Mexica culture, there's a duality there, and there's a respect between both. I think, and this goes back, but I think a lot of that was like kind of disintegrated along the way when the Europeans got here, because obviously there is a lot of machismo, or in that culture. And I think it dates back to that. I don't know, but that's
No,
just my take on that.
I would agree. I would agree because it's a very where they believe it's supposed to be male dominant culture, right? And you're right. For the Mexica, it is about duality, and like a relationship is a partnership. And it's a partnership between two people where each of what they do is equal. You know what I mean? And I remember I had a homie chip out on me one time because I told him, yeah, like my wife and I share bank accounts. Like I don't work. I mean, she doesn't work, but that's our money. That's our money together. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, how's that your guy? You're the one that makes the money. I said, but if she were to not be able to stay home and take care of the kids, I wouldn't be able to go out there and make that money. This is a partnership. You know what I mean? She takes care of the house. She has that unlocked, and I go out there and make the money. And it's kind of like going back to the old days. It's like somebody needed to stay home and take care of while you were away hunting, right? And I'm not saying that she can't go with our hunt. She needs to, by all means. But it is a partnership where you have to respect everything that each side brings to the table.
Yeah, and I think that's, we've gotten, I'm totally with you on that. Like, what I hate when people are like, oh, well, she doesn't work. She's home all day, busting her ass, doing dishes, cooking, like at home, and with children especially, it's work that never ends.
Mhm.
Somebody that goes to work, like us, we go to work 9 to 5. But and as a woman, like, sometimes it is upsetting where I still have to go pick up children, drop off children, shower children, make sure that the homework is done. Like, for a woman, like, it's never ending. And if that child wakes up at 2 in the morning because that child is sick, more than likely it's always the woman who's responding to things like that. So for like men, that's one thing that's always bothered me. And this is not all men, of course. This is some men have the mentality where a woman is inferior, or she's not as hardworking as a man that goes to a 9 to 5, that he somehow is the producer. But without her at home washing your clothes and making sure that you got lunch, or whatever it may be, whatever arrangements you guys may have, that she's non-deserving of that, like, that really fucking triggers me.
Yeah, no, I agree, because you have to be able, like I said, respect. It's all about respect. And if men are that much like greater, then fucking go be the man. You know what I mean? Like fucking like for me, I appreciate everything that my wife brings to the table because I know she makes me stronger. I know that there are certain things that, yeah, I make her stronger also, but she makes like still sharpen steel. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
like boom, boom, where we're learning, and there's times where I'm like, she got me out of some shit where like, think about what you're doing, right? Right? Like let's reflect on this shit. Like, is this really what you want to do? And I'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah, that's what I want to do. I'm going for it. She'll be like, no, let's slow the fuck down. Like, really think about, is this the right decision? I'll start thinking like, she's right. I gotta chill the fuck out. So, but yeah, I thought that was interesting that they explored that. One thing that I did agree with, uh, was the fact that they started exploring different emotions, and they said something that I often say, but they said it a little differently. He said his dad, one of the inmates said his dad had two different emotions. He was either like calm, like nothing, like chilling, or he was mad. And I often say that on the streets, we have two emotions. We're either happy, having a good time, or we're mad. You know what I mean? It's like we're angry. So if we're confused, we're angry. If we're sad, we're angry. We don't know how to express those other emotions. So that was one thing that I thought was that they did very well in there, is getting the inmates who participate in that class to express different emotions.
Yeah, and I like how they touched on emotional intelligence because there's definitely more than two emotions out there. And you know what, in my household too, a lot of the men, it was like either I'm happy, I'm drinking, or I'm really fucking pissed, move out my way.
Yeah.
And to this day, some of like and of course some of these family members are older, but they don't express, even when like my grandfather passed, some of my uncles weren't willing to cry. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, I'd be bawling like a little bitch right now because I'm never going to see that person again. I'm never going to, that's like a big loss, that's your father. And I always tripped out on that. Uh, so that's a very important like point that they bring up. And it's important to just like, even when I'm speaking to some grown, because I work with the adult population as well. Some of them, like, they want to hold back tears. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, cry. Like, you gotta be able to understand what you're feeling. Don't get stuck. Feel what you feel, process it, and move forward. Because you can't move forward if that shit is heavy on your shoulder. You know what I mean? So, yeah, definitely. I feel you on that.
What was the triple about that though is what's kind of crazy is just I've been there. When my dad passed away, I really didn't uh, cry too much, or but it wasn't because I didn't want to or I couldn't express it. It was more because I think some people feel the need to comfort others during that time, right? So it's like I wanted to be like, oh yeah, it's my time to mourn. But every time I saw somebody, they were fucking tears in their eyes, and I was like, all right, I got to toughen up, and all right, what's going on? It's okay, it's gonna be okay, like be that shoulder to cry on. By the time it was my turn, everything was over, and I was like, oh fuck, like it's not hitting as, it was still hitting hard, but not as hard as the first few days. You know what I mean? So that sometimes maybe that could be. But I get what you're saying. Probably not. Most times men, fuck that. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry because I don't give a fuck. Like one of the comments I got one time, right? And I laugh at these comments sometimes because I was like, it's true. Uh, one guy said, I remember Cricket was all fat on TV crying. Like, yeah, it's true. I did. You could watch me Revenge Body. You could see, yeah, there were two instances where I shed tears, and I'm not ashamed of that. One of them was because my daughter, I was talking about when she was in the hospital, and that was one of the hardest times of my life. You know what I mean? Like, she was near death, and it really fucked me up. So yeah, even remembering that made me shed tears. So that was one of them. Another time was when I was telling my father how I felt, right? So we got to have a conversation. My dad was one of those guys who's not really good with opening up or talking about anything. So he talked a little bit more. He really didn't say too much, but he did say a little bit more that I wanted to, like, I needed to hear at the time. And so I was able to express my emotions there. That was actually the last time I seen him outside of a hospital too. That's pretty sad. But those were the two times I cried on there. So it's like I started laughing because I was like, it is true. I went on the show because I gained a lot of weight, and I cried twice. But like, no big deal. What am I gonna do? That make me less of a man? Like, nah, like I don't give a fuck. I'm comfortable with it. But I thought that was funny because he wasn't able to see like what the true point of it was. And like you said, like that's a lack of emotional intelligence on his part.
Yeah, definitely. I think growing up, like, growing up in the hood, growing up in the streets, you somehow we adopt this like this mentality where you can't be vulnerable to nobody because that makes you a bitch, And it's
Yeah,
like sometimes when you're willing to be vulnerable, when you're willing to be honest with yourself and with others, that's actually what gives you strength and character. And I mean, who's not gonna cry thinking about their child in a hospital bed near death, or just your experience with your father? Like, you got to be a fucking like dumbass to not understand the emotions that experiences like that can bring up. And then the fact that he tries to like clown, it's like, what the fuck, like, dude, like, really? I
yeah.
don't
I
know.
was like,
Yeah.
so to me, there are some because I read all the comments and shit. Some of them are like whatever, like I'll pay no mind because I don't even remember them because like they're pointless. But there are some of them that kind of stick to me because I'm just like, though they're making that's true what they're saying, right? Like it's true what they're saying, but sometimes they're missing the mark. There was another one where he was trying to clown, but there was a lot of fucking truth to what he said. It's when I had all the action figures and stuff on my desk, and somebody's like, "Why does Cricket have so many toys on his desk?" And then some guy was like, "Because he was in jail when he should have been playing with toys." And he was a guy who always clowns, right? Like he's not a clown, but he's always trolling. And I started laughing because that's fucking true. Like it is. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times when we're supposed to be out there learning how to be human beings. Now we are human beings, but learning how to be like emotionally intelligent, learning how to really grasp life and different concepts. We were doing other things and hiding the pain that we felt. So we didn't allow ourselves to grow at that point. So I looked at those two comments and those are the two that there's been tons of them that have said other shit that I don't even remember because I don't care. Like it's like whatever. Those two kind of stuck with me because it's like there were truth to them, but a lot of times they missed the mark.
Yeah. um what was I gonna say? You know what, though, going back to the subject, there is something that they touched on, and it was men who are like disabled, how they get discredited
Mhm.
as men. I thought that that was very important to I I've always been aware that people who have disabilities at times get discriminated, or not necessarily discriminated, but there's like in Spanish there's like the term está enfermito. I hate that term. um they I just like, yeah, like, what's up with that? Like, are we saying that somebody who for whatever reason is not able to provide is less than a man? Does and it sounds I'm contradicting myself in a way here, but like, I don't know, that was just, that made me sit there and just dwell on that. Like, is a
Yeah.
woman who's in a wheelchair less than a woman who can walk? Like, and I feel like in society we do that and we still discriminate. And I myself at times have, like, I mean, I wouldn't just like straight up discriminate somebody, but in thought, at times my way of thinking has been very narrow-minded. And I just thought that it was a great point to bring up. Or like the kid with the cerebral palsy, how he was diagnosed like later on in life. And I remember a lot of the kids that did go to special ed classes. I only went to like junior high, but right away we were mean to them because they were dumb, and that's not really the case. But I feel that that's a big thing that we got going on in society today and in our communities that really do affect our communities, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, and we address it in a certain way where it's like, what the fuck? Because I remember I had one of the homies I was in Y with. He went he went to the board to the like it was like board, right?
Mhm.
But I was like, what's up for your annual not up? What are you going for PCD or what are you going for? He's like, nah, it's my IEP.
Mhm.
So why the fuck you need an IEP? Like, what the hell? Fool? Like, what's the matter with you? And he's like, nah, I've been having it since I was and he's over here trying to explain it to me, and I'm not getting it because I'm just a jackass at that point. But it's crazy because you're right. Like I'm just looking at it like, what's wrong with you, fool? Like it's but not like that framing of it. What's wrong with you? Like, what the fuck was that about, right? But you're right. That's what we learned. We're like, something's different about him. Why? What's wrong with you? It's not what's wrong with you. He has a unique situation. And I probably made him feel more uncomfortable, and that's my bad because I was dumb. I didn't know how to address certain situations. You know what I mean? And at that point, I fucked up. There's probably been a lot of other points, but that's one of them that I remember where, like, why we frame, like, and I think you're right. It has to do with the way we look at it. What's wrong with you is a terrible fucking framing, but that's the way I grew up looking at it for a lot of, well, not when it came to like people in wheelchairs and anything like that. But when it came to homies that are supposed to be on my level, it's like, dog, why aren't you thinking the way I'm thinking?
Yeah, and now my observations, right, that and I'm not saying everybody. There are very sharp people within like the prison population, within I'm speaking about like people that go in and out of prison, and people who are currently battling with addiction. You'd be surprised at how many people had learning disability. So an IEP is an individualized educational plan, right?
Yeah,
So now that I'm in that field, it's a lot of people, and it's not necessarily wheelchairs or physical limitations that are obvious to us, but a lot of them are like learning disabilities. So within that population, there's a high percentage of people with special needs in terms of like cognitive limitations, not disabilities, but, or I'm not sure what the correct political term is for that, but yeah. So and I feel you, because I was like, damn, this bitch is fucking dumb, or
yeah,
you've just like, or like, I was just like very ignorant when it came to that too. But I was a kid, and I was a very ignorant kid, so I was just like, I remember like, damn, bitch, you on the slow bus or what, and imagine somebody that's already feeling some type of way. And I'm glad one of the guys in that documentary touched on how he came from a very abusive household, and how he himself was like molested, and there was just a lot going on at home. So you already have that, you feel inferior, you can't find yourself, you have all that trauma going on. And then for somebody, for your peers to come along and treat you as if you're dumb, like, that's got to do a number on our psyche,
yeah,
on our brain. So I just thought that was a very interesting point to like bring up. And yeah,
yeah.
that's what I gotta
So
say.
you're right, because what happens is, and I just did an interview with a homie who had a rough time away. He talked about his self-worth, how sometimes he would get socked out, and he would felt he deserved it because he went out, right? So if you feel you're not intelligent, if you feel like you're not intelligent and people are reinforcing that with negative comments, I can only imagine what they had to go through, what sense of self-worth they had, and how difficult it was to break that if they ever had the opportunity to break that. So yeah, there's a lot of things we need to learn and teach on, pass on to our kids, because we can't fix what we already did. It's done. So unfortunately, as youngsters, people like you and I made some fucked up mistakes, and at points we were jackasses. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We did some jackass shit. Like, fuck it. But we can't continue to do it. And I think that you and I are a great example of that we can't continue to live like that, and we are teaching different, and we are living different. And so I thought that documentary gave me an opportunity to explore some of those things where I was like, shit, I never seen it that way. They were like, they're talking about um, different ways that women are objectified, and I was like, oh shit. Because one thing I've always tried to do, and luckily they never allowed it, is I try to teach my kids how to get girls. Because the main thing is I don't want them to get their heart broken. You know what I mean? So I don't want them to fall in love and be like, dog, not yet. Let me show you how to get girls and this and that. But they were like, get out of here, dad. You're married. You have no game. Like, so it's basically, right. So like, what the fuck do you know? So I'm glad they did it, because I'm gonna let them do it their own way, right? And I wanted to, I do want to teach them more about respecting women, but I do try to show, that is one thing I always try to do, is show them how I treat Rosie, right? This is how you're supposed to treat a woman, right? But yeah, but I thought that was one thing that was very interesting, because what are cool terms for people: pimps, players, and the opposite's not, it's not the same, right? If a woman does something, she's not a pimp or a player.
He's a hoe,
Yeah, she's
which
a
is
hoe, she's a
wrong.
bitch. Yeah, yeah, it's fucked up.
You know, I've never played into that. Like, I feel that man or woman, you have the right to do with your body whatever it is that you want to do, as long as it's like you're being responsible. You know, there's a lot of younger women who are just promiscuous because they're hurt, and then they end up with more fucking psychological issues because they've done ran through the whole neighborhood, which to me, I'm not going to judge you based on that. But like for me personally, if I know that, you know, a woman is considered a hoe when a man's ran around and became fucking community property, I too don't want that. Because, and not because he's been promiscuous, but it just becomes, to me, of course, in my brain, it's like, well, where's your self-worth at? And I don't know
Yeah,
if that's me being old-fashioned, because that's what I was taught as a kid. Like, you know, you don't go around sleeping with everybody. And don't get me wrong, to those that do, I don't judge based upon what consenting adults do behind closed doors. Like, I'm not saying that, but I do get bothered when a woman is considered a hoe and a man is considered a pimp. And then just that word alone is ugly. Like, you're using somebody else to get you money, you know, through like prostitution or through, you know, sex work and stuff like that. And I was getting somewhere with this, which I completely forgot. Sorry, guys. But yeah, rape culture. That's another thing. Like, um, I hate that. I hate the way that and in my family too, like even the women, because sometimes we as women enable our men to be like machistas and you know, like, oh, you know, like, and he said it, a woman's walking down the street, and if she is dressed provocatively, like, that is not a reason to fucking rape somebody. And it's and you know what really bothers me about that too, that when you're being molested or you're being raped, it's usually not a stranger, it's usually going on at home.
yeah,
And what do? Well, in my household at least, oh no, let's not talk about it because that's not a subject we should be talking about it. When it's like, no, fuck that, we need to bring that to light, and it's got to stop.
yeah, for sure. A woman should be able to run down the street naked if she wants and nothing happened to her. Well, she'd probably go to jail, but that's but like there shouldn't be any consequences where she is threatened or hurt because of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, but if what other consequences legal wise, yeah, she should face out. You know, but I'm just saying like you shouldn't have to like just look at, oh, she's dressed this way, so she was asking for it. No, nobody's ever asking for that shit, motherfucker. Like nah, that shit. What anytime you do anything against somebody's will, it's fucking wrong. I don't give a fuck what the circumstances are. I don't give a fuck if you're in the middle of something and she says, "Hey, let's stop." Like that's on you, dog. You're gonna have to finish on your own. You know what I mean? Because like you stop, you stop. And I'm glad that that was always that was a value that my dad passed down to me, maybe for different reasons, but he did tell me, son, a sex offender is the worst fucking kind of motherfucker out there. You never want to go to jail for a sex offense. So, you know, if she says stop, you stop. Anything you listen, you know what I mean? Like don't push that shit. And so I've always been grateful for that because I knew at an early age sex offenses, fuck that shit fucks you up, and that shit's not cool. Like it's not even cool to hang around with motherfuckers like that.
Yeah, no. Although, and I don't know if I don't mean to sound ignorant, right? But I'm about to probably sound ignorant. Like, there are some things though that they want to, I don't know if it's laws or I've heard the whole like, well, you got to give consent to be touched here. And we're adults. So if we're speaking about sex, you're usually not asking, you know, for permission for, oh, hey, by the way, can I touch you here? So when we start to like try to like not micromanage, but like there's just certain things that it's like, no, some things are organically, and I don't know, like, where is the balance?
Yeah.
Definitely if somebody's passed out drunk or, you know, of course not. But other than that, like, what do you think in terms of like ask for permission to touch a hand?
So I'll probably could give way too much information right now, but I think that when it comes to I don't want to sound like a weirdo, but this I think when it comes to making love, there's an art form, right? And I do think like when you start asking for too much permission, you're killing the moment. You hear me? Could you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. No, that's what
Yeah.
I muted
Yeah.
myself because my daughter's in the background.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So you're messing up the moment, and it's not the same. Like the intimacy's lost because now it's turning robotic. Now it's just like,
Exactly.
can I
Yeah.
touch your hand? Can we pursue this? Like, what the fuck? Like, nobody watched that shit. And
Yeah.
I would think, I don't know, I'm not a woman, but maybe you could like touch on this, but wouldn't that kind of make you think like this guy's unsure of himself?
I think so. I think that there's things in life, for example, emotions, sex, um, shit, even your taste buds, right? Like there's things that come organically to you. And I just I couldn't picture my partner being like, by the way, may I just it's gonna kill the fucking moment. Like let's just roll with it, let's flow with it, let's have a great time. And let that be that. But when it starts getting down to like, and that's where sometimes as women I feel that we've gotten really like radical with shit. Like if I do get it, like sometimes we'll be walking down the street and people will be like, smile, like you fucking smile,
Yeah,
especially if
yeah,
you're in a bad mood. But if somebody is genuinely giving you a compliment, like what's wrong with that, and it's
yeah,
gotten to like, I feel like we've gotten into times where like being a heterosexual male is like all of a sudden a bad thing. And I don't know, I just feel that we have gotten very extreme with shit. Also, like women can do everything men can do. And yes, but then there are physical limitations to shit, and we got to be realistic about things. Like I know that if I were to fight you right now, I'm probably going to lose that fight because we're built differently. So then there's those things too where I feel like we as women are just getting too extreme with shit, and it's down, like you said, down to respecting men, respecting women, or anyone that you're with and you choose to live with, whatever you're into. There's got to be that respect. But sometimes I do feel that we as women have enabled a lot of this behavior too, by the way we educate our sons and daughters.
yeah, yeah. It's true, and I think there are, there you are right. There are things that women can do and men can do, and maybe it's not exactly the same, but you can try to make it similar. One
Mm-hmm.
thing that I used to do is I used to spar a lot, and I used to spar like, with anybody, so they would throw women in there.
Mm-hmm.
I did understand, like, oh, I'm not gonna go bomb on her. I'm gonna fuck her up. You know what I mean? But I would skill set. Okay, sometimes women were a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, they were a little bit more skilled than I was.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could definitely probably end it, boom, and like knock them out. But like I'm not gonna do that, right? But we were working on skill, and when it came to men, yeah, we would fight a lot harder, and we would hit each other to hurt each other. So you do have to keep that in mind. There are different boundaries. There are different like ways to do things. Even if you engage in something like that, you always have to keep that in mind. You're not going to hit her as hard. Like you're not going to hit a 5'8" woman, 130-pound woman, 170-pound woman, or however much she weighs, the same way you're going to hit a 6'2", 210-pound man. Like you're not going to do that because you're just not. But yeah, I think that you're right. There are some things that people need to learn. I saw this thing yesterday when I was watching this, and I was asking because I like to ask my wife and daughter their opinions, especially my daughter because she's very opinionated on things. So like, is there anything that oh, a man could do that a woman can't do? And my son's like, yeah, women can't pee standing up. Like he just jumped in the conversation, right? And my wife looked it up, and I guess there's a way, there's something women could buy, but I was just thinking like that's kind of unsanitary. Wouldn't it be like you gotta walk around with that shit all day? I don't know how it works, but it just seems like I don't know. Maybe I don't understand it, but that just seems unsanitary.
Is it like a plastic thing that covers
Yeah,
like your okay, so that a lot of women use for surgery. So when you go get like a tummy tuck, or when you go get a Brazilian butt lift, or I know that a lot of women who go
mm,
through, like especially like tummy tucks is what I see a lot. They use it for that because obviously, or a Brazilian butt lift, you can't sit down for like a period of 2 weeks or so. So they
yeah.
have to use instruments like that. But I don't think I would walk around with something like that, or I just don't think I would want to pee standing up. I like sitting down when I pee.
it
Except
just,
when you're drunk and shit. Like a man can just stand up and pee anywhere after the club or after the bar. Like we as women can't do that. So I am envious in terms of that.
yeah, I just thought it was weird because I was like, I know we're getting off the subject, but I was just like, how do you clean that shit after? Like, I don't know, but maybe that's not for me to know anyway. That's another
Maybe
thing.
you air dry. I don't know.
That's another thing that I want. And this is where I kind of where I kind of am maybe not fortunate. I wouldn't even say fortunate, but like because I'm married, I don't have to learn certain things, right? I'm not on the dating scene. I don't have to worry about certain what's going on out there or anything like that. Like it's none of my business. I do feel that sometimes though men need to
Go get me a
not worry.
cookie.
Why does she act like that? Why this and that? Like who gives a fuck? That's what she's doing, right? Like why? Go ahead. My bad. Oh yeah, yeah. So I'll just continue on while she's over there. So it's like my opinion is just like, why is it a big deal for what she feels? If you don't like the way she's acting, and if you're not her husband, you're not her boyfriend, or even if you are, like if you can reconsider it. It's always up to you.
Yeah. Um, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. My
Oh
my
no,
my
no problem, no
daughter's with
problem. Yeah,
me.
I just continue on for the listeners and viewers.
And I'm sorry, what was the question or what were you?
So I was just saying that how some men are so confused by the actions of women. Like, why do they want it this way? Why this? Why that? Right? And it's like they make it a point to where, well, I don't understand it, so it's making me angry. Sometimes it's not for you to understand, right? Sometimes I don't know is just the correct fucking answer.
I definitely agree with you. Like, and it goes both ways, right? Like if you can't understand somebody or shit's just too complex for you, then either you're gonna try to understand it, you're not gonna want to understand it, and you get the fuck up out of there. Especially like when you said when it's a woman that there's absolutely no relation or no relevance, like why?
Yeah,
And it goes the same. Like one thing that does bother me with like there's these dudes like on social media, and they're always talking about like he's always like talking shit about like single women with single moms, how oh if she wants me to date her, like she better not be broke and shit. And in my head I'm like, dude, you're 40 something years old, you're going bald, you're still single, obviously there's something fucking wrong with you too. And I
yeah.
hate that. I hate when like a certain, we attack women, and it's like, okay, obviously she fucked up. And I don't care who it is. I don't care how many babies dads you got. I don't give a fuck if you got 3 or 30 kids. As long as you're taking care of your children and you're doing right by those kids, like how the fuck is it anybody else's business? And so, and it goes both ways. If a man happens to have 10 kids with like 12 different women, like who the fuck am I to judge that man if that man has never been in trouble for child support and not just monetary, right? Like if that man chooses to be a part of that child's life, like I think it it comes down to, and not even man or woman, but just being respectful of how somebody else has chosen to live their life, even if it's unorthodox or it differs from yours,
Yeah.
and it's just like I don't know. I feel like that goes like in my household, it goes back to like, oh, una mujer, and I'm going to say this in Spanish because I can hear my grandma in the background. A woman should always, oh, there I go saying it in English. A woman, like if our goal should be to like get married to only one man and have this fruitful fucking life, but in reality they don't tell you about all the domestic violence that they decided to put up with because they couldn't afford to fucking move out with all 8 kids and all of that. So I don't know. I just feel like we as a society at times have set up some like very unrealistic uh not goals, but like
Expectations.
lifestyles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that bothers me too. Now I think about it is when somebody would say like say if a woman has 3 4 kids whatever and an exotic dancer, right? And they're like, oh, that kid's gonna be fucked up, his mom's a stripper. Like, why? She's struggling. Yeah, she's hustling, she's doing what she has to do to make money, right, for to support her kids. So why the fuck would I judge that? You know what I mean? It's like, how the fuck are you gonna judge her and not judge? And again, I like a dope dealer out there selling drugs. You know what I mean? It's like I wouldn't judge either of them. I understand the circumstances, But if fucking for me, it's just like I don't judge. Like fuck, it has nothing to do with me. You don't like what she's doing, then look away. You don't have to be part of it.
Exactly. Like, I don't, anybody up against the wall to do what they got to do to make ends meet, I support it. I think with drug dealers, and I'm guilty, I'm literally guilty, but I think now, with the whole drug dealing piece, it's like, in a way, depending on what you're selling, you are poisoning humanity. But then
Yeah.
again, nobody is forcing that person to come to you. So I understand why drug dealers do what they do, and I understand why sex workers do what they do, whether it's taking your clothes off or being a bikini dancer or being an escort. If you're not hurting anyone, it's really none of your fucking business. And some of those strippers are sometimes better moms than the ones that work at fucking McDonald's flipping burgers. It's all, you know, it comes down to the individual. And I don't mean to knock anybody that does work at McDonald's. Like, again, you do what you got to do, but let's not be judgmental of one another or assume just because somebody has a job that is unorthodox, they are less than we are. No, that's not the case. I mean, look at Cardi B, so fucking millionaire now, you know.
Yeah, you could even say that the female or male CEO are often great business people, great CEOs, but terrible fucking parents because they don't have time. You know what I mean? So a lot of times there could be a woman who's an exotic dancer or a sex worker who could be a way better parent than them because she's doing something that gives her the time to be flexible, right? So like she has flexible time. She could spend time with her kids, whatever. So she's able to be there more often than somebody else. So, you know, it's like, how are you gonna knock her?
Yeah, you know what? Something they did touch on that I want to bring up, because I think sometimes we as women glamorize hitting men, and I don't think that shit's okay either. Like, I feel that like, you know, oh fuck, you know, it's okay for us to hit a man, but a man not to hit you back. I feel that everybody has the right to self-defense, and I have a son, so I tell my son, look, if a woman hits you back, please don't hit her back, because I know your strength in comparison to hers is probably not at the same. I don't know. She might turn around and just beat his ass too. I really don't know, but I feel that we as women have gotten into a point where we feel like it's okay to disrespect a man. It's okay to hit a man and not be hit back. And it's like, no, it's never okay. Like, treat a man the way you would want somebody to treat
Exactly.
your child, your son, you know. And I feel like a lot of that just has somehow gotten lost along the way. And I feel like people are not being held accountable, like including men. Like, we see a large percentage of like single moms, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But when we do see people that like prison population, there's also a high percentage of people that come from single parent homes. So obviously there's something that needs to be worked on there. Oh, that's another thing. When a mom is single with like 3 or 4 kids, oh, you know, she's this, she's that, but where the fuck is the dad? You
Yeah.
know, and I had this you know, the what's his name? Gabriel Fernandez, the little boy that passed.
Oh yeah.
Well, Pearl, I knew Pearl. Pearl grew up in San Fernando. We used to walk to school and stuff. So it just hit home because it was so close to home, right? So anyhow, I was sitting there talking to my colleague, and he was like, oh no, you know, fuck her, this and that. I agree, fuck her. But where was the dad in the midst of all of this shit? Oh, well, he was in prison. He couldn't. No, 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 sir. Like, the minute you decide to have a child, life is no longer, I mean, of course, you got to take the time to be you and do you so that you can fully, you know, um, also dedicate yourself, but be fully present is what I'm trying to say. But like, for them to and the dad was a victim, of course he was, right? But it's like, can we just stop blaming the single mom all the time? Because I want to know where the dads are at. Because even if it was a one night stand, the minute that you have that knowledge that there's a child that's coming from that, you should take responsibility. Because if you didn't want that responsibility, then you should have used a condom straight up, or protection,
Yeah, and even
or
if you
pay for the
did,
abortion.
even if you did and it didn't happen, like it would still happen, whatever. It's still your responsibility. But yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's sad because I've heard of a lot of fucked up situations that happened to children while their dads were busted.
Yeah.
And they weren't there. And I'm not saying like, oh, fucking look what you did. Like, but still, you have to keep that in mind. If you're out there acting, like you said, if you're out there acting a fool, you're gonna get, there's gonna be consequences for that. So what's more important? You mean what's gonna happen with your children? You have to think about that. And that's one thing I think about all the time. Like, there's no way, like, I love my wife to death, but I know if I were to ever get busted, and I would probably have to do a long time, she would have to move on. I wouldn't want to, oh, wait for me. That was another thing that tripped me out on the thing, right? Like, how many guys are here have women supporting them? Bam, you see everybody raise their fucking hand. It's like, I wouldn't want that. I was like, nah, like, fuck, like, you got the kids to worry about, like. And then I don't know, I couldn't put myself in that situation, because there's no way I can not be a part of my kids' life like that. You know what I mean? If something's there, I have to be able to be there. So you're right. Like, where are the fathers at? Being in jail, it shouldn't really be an excuse, because you should be there for your kids.
Yeah. And that's something that I thought about too. And I'm not like saying it like passing judgment on to anybody, or, but it is true. Like, are we as women, like sometimes, and we as women too, right? Because I feel like just any human being that can reproduce needs to like really think about what they're doing, and either use protection, not have kids, or find something to do with that child to ensure that. And life is, it sounds black and white, but it's really not. But like, are we, when we're hooking up with these people, and I'm not talking about just random sex, I'm talking about when you decide to go forth in a relationship with someone, are we even looking at who their characteristics internally? Like, well, what kind of person is he? Is he responsible? Does he like to work? Does he like to sit on the couch and smoke weed all day? Like, I just feel like we have to hold ourselves accountable, hold those men accountable, and then hold those women accountable, because there's a lot of women who are very fucking negligent too, and would rather put the boyfriends before the children sometimes. So we're all equally like responsible for the children that we're raising and that we're having. Like, that's fucked up when kids are killing themselves and shit because they're being bullied online. Although I've told my kids, if you ever get bullied online, I'm gonna fuck you up for getting bullied offline, because you need to turn that computer off. But again, it's different. I never grew up on Instagram. I never grew up with that, wanting that validation. I wanted the validation directly from people in my neighborhood. So it's very different ways of growing up, but nonetheless, I feel that it does come down to us as a community.
You know what the trip is? Talking about bullying and all that. When I was a kid, right? I think about 96, 95, 96. I think 95. I was in the 7th grade, and there was an 8th grader. She was leaving to high school, right? I guess before we had a little after school kind of party and shit, right? I guess before I got there, she had like kissed 2 guys and scam or mac or whatever the fuck we used back then. So I get there and I didn't know anything about it, right? And she fucking she was like, hey, go with me in the closet. So I'm like, oh, fuck it, let's roll, right? So we go in the closet, do what we have to do, and by the time we get out, they took her purse. Other girls there, like, she's a fucking hoe. And we were right next to the riverbed. They threw it in the riverbed, fucking threw all her stuff out. So bullying is a motherfucker, even back then. But it was sad because it's like she was having fun. She was exploring who she is. Maybe she was her. I don't know. I don't know the exact situation of what was going on. But for what I could tell, maybe she was young, just trying to explore who she was, seeing what kind of people she liked, right? I don't know. Who the fuck was I to judge? But they took it another way, and I thought that was fucked up. Like, really fucked up.
And I think we still do that. I think that I've never really like judged anyone based on their, like, how many partners they've had, their body count. Is that what that is? The other day, my son's like, Mom, what's your body count? I'm like, what is he talking? Anyhow, yeah, like, and not, I feel what you're saying, because like automatically, like, if like growing up, like if a girl stepped with 1 or 2 of the homies, like automatically she was a hoe and she was treated less than. But it's fucked up when women do it to women. Like, what makes you think that she's less than you? She's just gonna wash her fucking vagina or body and she's back to normal, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's like small thinking, or I think it comes down to, and I could be very wrong about this, but I think it comes down to like a lot of us, like, you know, like I'm Mexican, we grew up Catholic. So the Catholic Church, you know, it teaches that women should be pure and women should be virgins up till marriage and bullshit and blah, 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 blah. So I think that sometimes at home they educate us that way. And of course, I don't think anybody wants their children being irresponsible with their body and, you know, just catching shit out there, or I don't know, there's different reasons. But I think that religion plays a big part with that in terms of what you should or shouldn't do with your body. And we're sometimes educating women wrong. Like, no, I mean, my children are still somewhat young, so I'm not fully there where I can be like, educate on that. But I think that as we do that, well, I see, you know, I have a friend with 5 kids, and right away they talk about how many kids dad she's got, and they talk about you know, her past. But fact of the matter is that she does have 5 kids, but she's taking care of those kids rather than all kids being in the foster care system and nobody really care. I don't know. I feel that there's a lot of discrimination when it comes to women who have been promiscuous or even divorced. If you're
Yeah.
divorced, like in Mexico, they call it fracaso, and all of a sudden you're not as good as somebody who was able to stay married, which
Just
is
because you, yeah,
bullshit to
that's just
me.
weird. Just because you couldn't find the right partner at that time, because people don't understand life is not that it's not that like as simple as they want it to be. You know what I mean? It's like it is simple. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things that are simple, but sometimes people grow out of each other. Sometimes
Yeah.
people grow in different directions, and it's cool. Like it is what it is. Like if that person is no longer, I'm not gonna say an asset or anything like that, but if they're no longer somebody who makes you happy, or you don't have that same spark you once had, it should be okay to move on. And it's a trip because when I was a kid, I used to always say my mom and dad need to fucking leave each other. This because I knew this was an unhealthy fucking relationship, but they didn't. They made my mom still my dad till he died. Well, fucking they probably should have though. But like it's okay to do that, right? Like what people think like damaged goods or whatever, like fuck, like people. I think it has to go back to their sense of self worth. It's fucked up. People's sense of self worth is fucked up. Like be
Yeah.
comfortable with who you are, and who gives a fuck what other people think. That's what I was saying. I don't give a fuck what other people think. Like that's why I do these segments. I do a lot of different segments because I don't care. Like yeah, people are gonna like me or dislike me anyway, but this is who I am.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I'm not going to judge you for what you believe. I'm not going to judge anybody for what they believe in. Uh, and I know we talked about it before. We said if you're a right winger, left winger, Marxist, fucking libertarian, we don't care. Like that you're cool. Just as long as you come at us respectfully. And that's the way I feel about anything like that. If it has nothing to do with me, it's not going to impact my life. Then I'm not going to trip on it too much. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, definitely. Like I just feel absolutely that as long as you're not, you know, like harming anyone, like you have the right to live your life. Like I know for myself, like there's no way in hell I would, like, you know, I'm divorced. I've you know, people are like sometimes like, oh, you know, you're smart, blah blah blah. Yeah, in some aspects of life, but when it comes to my selection in men, like especially in my younger years, like god damn, like when I was like Oscar the Grouch, I love trash, you know. But like what was I supposed to do? Stay there stagnant and commit to something where I wasn't happy, or get the fuck on with myself? And then one day somebody said something in terms of my partner, he's like, oh yeah, my friend said, like, how do I date a woman with kids? Like, motherfucker, you're lucky I'm giving you the privilege to even, you know what I mean? Like, because you touched on that, and they
Yeah.
consider people damaged goods. People are not damaged good. People are people with different paths, different journeys, and you got to respect that, you know. And if that person with fucking 20 kids or with no kids is good for you and feeds you mentally, physically, emotionally, and you guys got a good balance, that's all you got to be worried about, not someone's like past or judging based upon stupidity like that. I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And it's like, like think about your past and would you, not you, but anyone in particular, like if you're judging somebody, think about your past and would they find that attractive? Like, and if you be like, no, maybe not, well, don't fucking worry about it then. Don't worry about what's going on in her life, in her past life. You weren't there. If she wants to open up to you about it later, fuck it, go ahead and you guys can talk about that. But don't let that be the fucking end all be all if we could pursue this relationship or not. Like, what the fuck? Like, come on, man, grow up. You know, you gotta be older and like. It's a lot of people do that shit. They aren't even fucking. They're not gonna date supermodels or anything. So I don't know what the fuck. Why the standards are so damn high, anyways.
Yeah, I always tripped out on that. Like I remember some of my friends, and I had really great relationship with my friends, and they'd be like, "Hey, where's the hoes at?" And then I look at them and I'd be like, "You guys are the hoes, fool. What you talking about?" And then but they'd be like, "Nah, that bitch is fat," and I'd be like, "Fool, you're fucking lucky any female is talking to you. Like that bitch is fat. She can lose weight, but you're fucking ugly, fool. Like you need, and I've always been brutal like that with my friends because with men, it's a little more like a lot more room to clown. We don't take things, not that I'm a man, but that my crowd was always like, dudes. And there's more room to crack jokes rather than with women. We get a little more, not everyone, but a little more emotional when someone's clowning and shit, especially about weight and stuff like that. But yeah, I've never understood that. And honestly, as a person, and luckily I've always been like this, like I've never felt the need to break anything down for anybody. Like either you accept me for who I am. I don't need to give you a fucking historic rundown of what it is that I did or didn't do. Like, this is who I am. Accept it or leave it or don't fuck with me. I could care less. I'm somewhat.
Like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely. And I don't know if it was my upbringing too, but I'm very like private and I don't like a lot of friends and stuff like that. Not because I can't make those social connections, but because I just like to, I just like to live privately and stuff like that. But yeah, but definitely I do trip out on that, on the toxic. And in terms of that, that's toxic masculinity when you're like judging someone based upon if she's ugly, if her butt is big. Like, I don't think those should be our priorities or our way of like, I don't know. Although I think visuals are nice sometimes. I'm not saying obviously you got to be attracted to someone.
Yeah. Biologically, that's going to be there. Biologically, we are going to have certain attractions based on certain things, right? But you're right. You should be able to move past that. If you see somebody who's like, man, this person, I really connect with them, but they're not my type. If you're really connecting them, they're your fucking type. Think about that. Like think about that. So some people just, I don't know, they don't see it that way, and I think it's unfortunate for them. I really do, because if you're gonna probably miss out on something that can be very special, could be very great opportunity for you to grow with somebody else, but they're gonna leave it behind because they're not your type. Like, that's on you.
Yeah, you know what? I have one of my really actually this man left an imprint, like the blueprint to the things that I admire in a man and in any man. And he passed, my friend, one of my really good friends, best friends actually, Shooter, right, from San Fernando. I remember we would just talk for like, I'd go visit him, and you know how fucking visiting rooms are boring. All you got is a vending machine, some fucked up cheeseburgers and shit. But we would just talk and about just random shit. And that connection was there. But when he got out, I was going through a divorce. So I wasn't really interested, aside from the fucking around and going out to clubs and stuff like that. But like now I think, and of course, after he passed, that's somebody who like educated me. I remember he used to tell me like, hey, don't dumb it down for nobody. Don't dilute yourself for nobody. Like, just the knowledge this man had. But I don't know, man. Like, to me, like, that was a giant amongst giants. Like, everything that he taught me, and it was like, I don't know. So when you do have a connection with somebody, like you said, I was like, he's not really my type, blah blah blah. But I don't know. I think you want someone that's gonna keep you stimulated mentally and going along the way, and where that love's going to continue to grow and that relationship's going to be nourished, rather than someone that's just like for the moment. And I think a lot of us get caught up in the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I always find myself saying when I'm talking to my wife, not always, but a lot of the times, the reason why I love her so much, I say, that's interesting. When she'll say something, I'm like, that's interesting, right? And I'm like, huh, I never thought about that. So, you know, if you have somebody, it doesn't have to necessarily be that, but if you have something that somebody will enhance your life in a certain way, I wouldn't have to, I don't want to say enhance because your life should be well without somebody, but if they do something where there's just some kind of spark, like, yeah, pursue that. Don't matter how they look. But let's get back, getting back to the documentary. What would you say? How would you rate it? And what would you say you left with after watching it?
I think I left with a lot of information. I retained a lot of information, and it made me look at my own flaws, as I mentioned, with like people, like, you know, how am I judging and you know, a man in a wheelchair and somebody who not necessarily a man in a wheelchair, but just in general, it allowed me to view my own biases and shallow way of thinking. I thought it was a great documentary. I don't agree with everything, but it definitely kicked a lot of knowledge and is having me now think more towards how I view and perceive people.
Definitely. And I'd have to agree with you. Again, there were certain things I was like, that's a little too much for me. But there were a lot of things there where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna reconsider the way I approach certain things. A lot of them having to do with my boys. I'm not gonna try to, when they're ready to start dating or get girls, because before I was like, damn, by the time I was their age, what's going on? You know what I mean? Like, but they're the wrong people. They're gonna pursue it their way they want, and I'm gonna try to teach them best to make sure they do it respectfully.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that touch too, for me, something that I left away with is like the duality and respect between men and women. And, you know, that's going to have an effect on your family, on your household overall. So I think definitely that balance and that respect should be there, in not just with your significant other, but in general with the connections that you're making with people. You know, what are we leaving? What
Yeah,
piece of us are we leaving for them? Yeah.
yes, sir. And before we wrap it up, is there anything else you wanted to add, Yara?
No, this was an interesting topic though.
That's what I love about this documentary you put out there, because there's so many topics to touch on with it, and it was just dope.
Yeah, definitely.
And with that, we out. Peace.